everyone, are you ready for another adventure? It's me, Wokey, and I'm back with another fake Grand Order video. And what are we going to be talking about today? Well, today we're going to be talking about the upcoming Interlude Campaign Part 19, which they just announced. That's going to be today's video. I hope you like it. If you do, feel free to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Should be a relatively very easy topic to talk about. And let's begin already, shall we? So, to start, the Interlude Campaign will be here on the 10th, and the campaign itself lasts until the 17th. The interesting thing to note of here is that means that this will actually show up when the current summer event is ending, because that one is ending on the 10th for us. And interesting to talk about a little bit later on the end of the video after we finish going over everything. For the campaign summary, we'll look at this right here. So, new interludes for 2 servants will be released for a limited time. These interludes will be available even if you don't have the featured servants. The chance of super and great suck when performing enhancement on these servants will also be doubled during this period. And also get summon tickets and Hellfire Wisdoms, the 5 EXP version from the special accrued login bonus. In addition to AP costs for interludes will be halved for all servants. This is a great chance to play through interludes for your favorite servants. The new interludes that are going to be added are going to be Don Quixote and Constantinos, with both of them showing up on the 10th, obviously. To unlock Don Quixote, I don't know, I was about to completely screw up Don Quixote's name there. I was like, Don Quixote? Don Quixote. To unlock it, you have to have cleared Singularity F, achieved Stage 3 Ascension, and achieved Bond Level 5, and then this interlude will give you a strengthening for Don Quixote's skill. We'll talk about the strength and skill a little bit later when we go over the banner, because obviously he's going to be on it. And then for Constantinos, you have to have cleared the Realm of Thanatos Impulse, Trom, achieve Stage 1 Ascension, and achieve Bond Level 5, and in his interlude he'll also get a strengthening to his Noble Phantasm, something we will talk about again a little bit later on when I get there. And like I said a little bit when I was explaining other things, eligible interlude available even if you don't have the featured servants for a limited time. For a limited time, the 2 newly released interludes will be available even if you don't have the featured servants. In addition, the usual requirements for unlocking these interludes will be temporarily replaced with special requirements. Use this chance to play through these interludes, and this will be here from the 10th, from the 17th. I would suggest making sure you do it because this counts towards your mission count, and also just some free Saint Quartz as well, and also you get to read some interesting story details that you would otherwise never experience unless you actually pulled for the character. And considering one of them is an SSR and the other one is a story locked SR, you should do it. But for Don Quixote's, his temporary requirement is just clearing Singularity F, and for Constantinos it is clearing Trom, though I know that for some people there's likely a thing of they've not even come close to clearing Trom. Rewards earned by clearing these quests will be the regular rewards. If you don't own a certain servant and a quest requires you to have the servant in your party, you'll be able to select the servant as a support servant during the party setup. In the event that you meet the requirement and clear an interlude of a servant you do not yet own during the campaign period, the strengthening rewards provided as clear rewards will be applied to that servant should you obtain them in the future. The completion of servant interludes will still count towards your extra mission progress, even if you do not own the related servants. And then all interludes that are part of this campaign, if not cleared during the campaign period, will no longer be available to masters who do not own the servants in question, and will return to their normal unlock requirements after the campaign period ends. And then servant interludes you have already cleared cannot be played again. 2 times chance of super and great suck chance during enhancement of eligible servants, which you can guess it's Don Quixote and Constantinos. The period for this is again the 10th to the 17th, and then interludes, it will be AP cost 1/2 for all servants for a limited time. All servants interludes will be included. AP costs in interludes for all servants will be halved during the period listed below, 10 to the 17th, and then eligible is all, like they said a little bit earlier. And next, Interlude Campaign Part 19 Release Celebration Special Accrued Login Bonus, limited time. We'll be distributing a special accrued login bonus to celebrate the release of Interlude Campaign Part 19. Log in 5 times, counted once per day during the period below to receive summon tickets times 2 and 5 EXP, 9 5 EXP. They call it the Hellfire of Wisdom all 5-star SSR. It's just easier for me to say 5 EXP, but this does screw me up every single time I have to use this site and refer to them as Hellfire of Wisdom all a 5-star SSR. Anyway, login bonus period is the 10th to the 17th. Eligibility, all who have cleared Singularity F. That's it. That's all you have to do. And on day 1, it's obviously the summon ticket. On day 5 is another summon ticket, and then in between that is a bunch of 3s of the SSR. 3 of the SSR, 3 of the 5-star EXP. And then finally, we have the banner that comes with this, which is the Interlude Campaign Part 19, Constantinos 11 Pickup Summon. This will last from the 10th to the 17th, and you guessed it, 2 servants will be included for a limited time, Constantinos and, of course, Don Quixote. And I guess now is the time for me to actually go over them, which I'm gonna go switch over to the other site. There's no reason for me to look at and say like, oh yeah, here's how it's gonna break down. No, there's no breakdown here. It's from the 10th to the 17th. These are the only 2 dudes on the banner. Anyway, I'm gonna go transition to the other site right now. All right, transition complete, and now we're here on the other sites, and here are the units we're gonna be talking about. So we're gonna start with Don Quixote and then move on to Constantine over here. Don Quixote, he is a story lock servant. He is also a lancer, and he has 2 quicks, 1 arts, 2 buster, 5 hits on quick, 3 hits on arts, 2 hits on buster, 5 hits on extra. His active skills are the Great Adventurer of the Traveling Knight EX, increases his own quick performance for 3 turns, increases his own buster performance for 3 turns, and then grants self the gut status for 1 time, 3 turns, 20% to quick and buster, and then he revives with 2000 HP, and this is on a cooldown of 6. His second skill is Opening the Door of Fantasy EX, increases his own attack for 3 turns, charges his own NP gauge every turn for 3 turns, and then gain crit stars every turn for 3 turns. 20% to attack, the NP regen is 10%, and the star regen is 10, and this is on a cooldown of 6. The third skill, which is after the interlude, this is the new good version of the skill, is Closing the Curtain of Reality EX. Can only be used when own NP gauge is 30% or higher. Increases own damage against the super large enemies for 3 turns, and then charges party's NP gauge except for self, and then gains some crit stars. 30% to super large damage, 30% to the MP charge, and the stars you get are 30, and this is on a cooldown of 5. If you want to know what this skill used to be, can only be used when you have an MP gauge of 30% or higher, and then it was a 500% chance to reduce your own MP gauge to straight up 0%, and then you got 20 stars and 30 NP gauge to everyone in the party except for you. So a vast improvement of what you can do with Don Quixote. Next, his passive skills are Magic Resistance E, Riding E, and Traveling Attendant B, which is an increase to own instant death resistance by 20%. His third skill is the Anti-Rider Attack Damage Aptitude, and his Noble Phantasm is the Valiente Estalo Dedicado a la Princesa. Ah, my dear princess, I shall dedicate my spear to you. Rank D++, anti-giant, it's quick. It hits 5 times, it deals damage to 1 enemy, deals 150% extra damage against the giant enemies, a 500% chance to deal 1000 damage to yourself, and then increase party attack by 20% for 3 turns. At MP level 1, it's 1200, and if you get them all the way to MP level 5, it's 2000, and the overcharge effect is an increase to party's crit damage for 3 turns. At charge level 1, it's 20%, and if you get them all the way to the final charge level, it's 60%. And then finally, the Bond C that we have here is the Lovely Princess and the Faithful Knight. When equipped on Don Quixote, increases party's damage against giant enemies by 20% while self is on the field. And that is Don Quixote. So how is Don Quixote? Well, post buff, I think he's really solid. I think he's really good. If you're looking specifically for someone to fight against a super large enemy, you can definitely bring him in for that. If you're going against a super large archer, you can become, actually you have to have super large, and then you also have to be a giant. So if you're looking at the fight, usually they go hand in hand, but I guess if you're ever fighting against a giant that is not considered super large, or something that's super large that's not considered a giant, I guess you wouldn't want to try and use him there. It's a specific niche, but he also does have some nice party increase to stuff, like obviously being able to for the party give them some NP gauge is really nice. The one thing that is kind of a negative about him still is that he has a very slow NP gauge charger. So the way I would like to imagine using him now that once he gets post buff, and that's how I'm going to try and use him from this point on, is that whenever I need someone to take down a really big archer in like a weird farming node where I know for a fact there's going to be like a weird setup of like you need an AoE unit, you need another unit, then you want him. I kind of and you have like that kind of setup. I would like to use him to come and handle the single enemy that needs to be taken care of. And then before he leaves, make sure to also buff the allies here. It also is nice that he's able to give a lot of crit stars here, so that's the way I think you would best theoretically use him. And I think that the buff has been a major help, because beforehand this buff, thematically amazing, but it did make it so that you kind of like never actually use the Noble Phantasm with Don Quixote, where this one feels like a little bit more better suited and I guess hopeful. Funny enough, I'm really interested to read the interlude. That's my basic thought about him, is I think there's definitely he's definitely more usable now than he was beforehand. Is he anything super crazy like go in there, go in that? I don't think so. I think he'll end up being perfectly fine if you want to try and find other single target lancers, especially one that is, I guess this is another negative, he is story locked. I wish he wasn't story locked, but because he is story locked, it means that you can only specifically get him on very specific banners, which is the story banner, which you can only get him after you've completed Trom, which super sucks. So that means if you're someone who's looking to get him to MP level 5, or maybe get enough copies that you would potentially get him max append or something, which is something I would love to do, the story locked is basically going to stop you at every given time unless you are hyper dedicated and you're willing to summon on banners like this that you see right here. So yeah, that's Don Quixote. More than anything, I'll say this just to end it off, because I understand for the most part, for most people, he doesn't look like anything too crazy. But what I love about Don Quixote more than anything else, it's just the theming around Don Quixote. I talked about this before, where they really captured the story of Don Quixote to such an amazing degree that I just love everything about it. The way he starts as like the shining gold knight, and then the way you ascension him, you actually get to see the actual man Don Quixote who's beaten down and you look like this. And the way that the third skill, even though it was bad beforehand, was very symbolic of what happened to Don Quixote, which was once the curtain was raised on him, his dream was over. But at the same time, Don Quixote was always a symbol that inspired other people, which is, I feel like, maybe not in the story itself, I would probably consider in the story itself, but even in a larger sense of all the people that have been inspired by Don Quixote, who is a man who always chased things that seemed impossible. Even when everyone else called him mad, he still was able to inspire others, and I really do like that they were able to take that into account when building into his skills and stuff like that. Even his Noble Phantasm, which is used to specifically fight giants that he saw as windmills, he takes damage because he also took damage when he fought windmills. I think there is such an amazing level of detail to him that I just can't help but love him. I just wish he wasn't story locked, because then I would get him MP5. He would be my Grand Lancer in a heartbeat if that was possible for me to do, but unfortunately not possible. Plus he comes with Sancho. Who doesn't love Sancho? So let's move on to Constantinos real quick. Okay, so go here, and here we have Constantinos, or Constantine, whichever way you kind of want to prefer him. He goes by both names. I should really just stick with one of them because I know it's going to annoy someone. I'll go with Constantine from this point on. So Constantine, he's a limited servant, he's a writer. He has 1 quick, 2 arts, 2 buster, 4 hits on quick, 4 hits on arts, 3 hits on buster, 5 hits on extra. His active skills are Prayer of the Hagia Sophia, C-, increase own NP generation rate for 1 turn, 500% chance to draw attention on all enemies to self by 300% for 1 turn, gain crit stars, 50% to NP rate, 20 to stars you get, and this is on a cooldown of 6. His second skill is the Fallen Empire, EX, increases party's attack for 3 turns, increases party's buster performance for 3 turns, and increases the critical damage of Roman allies for 3 turns, 20% to attack, 20% to buster, and 30% to the Roman crit damage on a cooldown of 6. His third skill is the Cessation Privilege C, charges his own NP gauge, and then increases his own critical damage for 3 turns, gain critical stars every turn for 3 turns, grants self an on-death activated buff when for 3 turns when defeated, charges the last ally's NP gauge except for self, increases last ally's critical damage except for self for 3 turns, and then grants the last ally's critical star regeneration buff except for self that goes for 3 turns. 30% to the NP, 30% to the crit damage, 10 star regen, 30% to the last ally's NP, 30% to the last ally's crit damage, and 10 to the last ally's star regen, and this is on a cooldown of 6. His passive skills are Writing B+, Magic Resistance B+, and Independent Action C++. His third skill is an Anti-Archer Attack Damage Aptitude, and his Noble Phantasm, which he gets after his buff here, is the Theodosia Constantinos by these threefold walls, I swear. It is rank B++. It's anti-army of the self. It's Buster. It grants parties Buster performance, increases parties Buster performance for 3 turns. Grants party invincibility for 1 attack 3 turns, stackable with other invincibility. Reduces damage taken of Roman allies by 5,000 for 1 turn. In MP level 1, it's 30% to Buster, and if you get him all the way to MP level 5, it's 50%. And then his overcharge effect is it increased to party's defense for 1 turn, and it increased to party's NP damage except for self for 3 turns. Charge level 1, it's 100% to defense and 20% to NP damage. And then as we look and see the final charge level, it's 200% to the defense and 40% to the NP damage. And we go to his Bond CE, which is all fades to dust. When equipped to Constantinos, grants self an on-death activated buff. When defeated, increases the party's attack except for self by 20% for 3 turns, and then recovers party's HP except for self by 5,000. Also, this is important because if you want to see the upgrade that he got, this is what this Noble Phantasm used to be, which is an increased own Buster performance for 3 turns. Grants self invincibility for 1 attack 1 turn, and reduces the damage taken of Roman allies by 5,000 for 1 turn. That Buster effect used to only be applied to him, and then he also used to only apply an invincibility that was not stackable with other things, and it only lasted for a single turn, but now it lasts for 3. So, Constantine. And then also the NP increase because he's now charging the parties. That is Constantine. How do I feel about him? So once again, I always tell this story because I think it's a very funny story and it's a good way to put into perspective a lot of opinions about units. When I first read Constantine, when he finally came to us in the game, I thought that he was a very wall of a unit, like a very interesting, like, oh, if you're going in with your Roman allies, you can bring them in as a taunter, as like a big ass wall that will stop your enemy from trying to do anything to you, really. And I thought that was really good, and I thought, oh man, seems cool, seems good to me. And then I looked and saw what people thought of him after I recorded that video, and it turns out most people thought that Constantine was like one of the worst units in the game. So then I was like, oh, okay, I guess he's bad. I always, when I read him, I'm like, yeah, he's hyper defensive focused. So maybe if you don't care about defense, maybe you don't care about him all that much. But it turned out a lot of people just didn't think he was very good. But then they buffed him, and this buff that he got to his Noble Phantasm, amazing. I love this buff. A great buff here that he got here. Not only has he because the thing that always like made no sense is that he only ever increased his Buster performance for 3 turns, which he only has 2 Buster cards, and 3 if you count his Noble Phantasm, which again does no damage to the enemy. So it's a little bit of a when you put into a lot of that, you kind of go like, okay, maybe I could see where people were coming from with that. Maybe I was being a little bit too gracious on my boy here that I really liked. But anyway, this buff is amazing. The fact that he gives you an invincibility, like they buffed every single part of him. Like not only is he now better supporting to the entire force, because beforehand really a lot of the support, the big support that you would get from him was after he died. So if he did not die in this specific like time frame, that would be kind of a bad, especially when his entire gimmick is like, oh no, let me make a big ass shield. So making a unit that's a big ass shield and then also giving them an on-death activated buff, was like, well, they have to actually hit you with that first, I guess. And lets him be able to buff allies in a lot more ways than just one. He really makes a lot of, especially if you're using Roman allies, super tanky, but thankfully the Roman buff that you get from it's not specifically tied to Romans, it's just anything that's Buster. So it'd be really ideal if you could use them with a Roman ally or someone who could turn a Roman ally that could turn anyone into Rome would be really good, but you got that for him. And then he also increases NP damage to everyone except for himself because he doesn't need that. I really do like that they included the except self because they're like, okay, let's not give him a useless ass NP damage up 20% for no reason. So I think he ends up being, again, a unit that is a big, thick wall of a unit. I really do appreciate a lot of the units that have the ability to draw attention, draw aggro on themselves, because I think a lot of those units can really come in handy in challenge quests, especially if you're someone who super cares about like, okay, well, my opening play is always going to really hurt me. Can I in some way make it so that someone else takes the brunt of it? Or maybe it's you're preparing someone for a Noble Phantasm and you're like, well, I need this single target to hit one guy in particular and not anyone else, this is where abilities like this can really come into handy. And with that, and then also with his third buff, you can make it so that when he dies, that he'll be able to help everyone else out. Like, you can try and wall up as much as you can for the other allies. Like, if you're not able to fully take down the Noble Phantasm, you know you're gonna die to it, you can hit up that third skill, take advantage of it, hit the Noble Phantasm, and then get smacked in the face by a big old Noble Phantasm and go down. These are all theoretical stuff, but I think it's a really neat defensive type unit that isn't going to be for everyone. If you're someone who's hyper aggro and you're like, well, Wokey, that's all really good and like great that you say that, but what if my main defense is killing things before they have a chance to hurt me? Then I go like, okay, well, I guess maybe you don't need them. I mean, I guess the answer here is you don't need my boy here. I guess you could just do that. I do that fairly often. It's definitely quicker, I'll give you that, but there are some people who really do dig the slower gameplay style, and for them I think this would be a pretty fun unit to have like in your backhand pocket for a potential use. Again, I look forward to using him post buff, and seeing what I can use him with, either with some, I can think of at least, I have a decent chunk of really good Roman dudes, Nero, but I can use him with some other ones as well. And that's is it for this part. So I don't know who's going to be summoning on this. I guess this is the part where I say like, hey, should you summon? The answer is probably no. We're getting really close to a lot of big banners on the horizon. The reason why I haven't been doing a video about what the next event is going to be is I'm not sure if it's actually going to be on the 10th. If we take a look and see at the JP schedule real quick, you can see when this ended, it was June 7th, but when this ended, it was June 7th. So I have a feeling they're creating a little bit of a knockback so Willem Harlot would start on June 7th. But now with the way that they have the interlude kind of going on, it makes me feel like maybe it starts on the 17th, maybe, which would be, yeah, that would be interesting because it would start on the 10th and then go to the 17th. I just don't know if they want to have it so that everyone can do their interludes and then also have a thing of like I don't know if they wanted the interludes to be coinciding like with the Lilum Harlem event and stuff like that. So again, I'll pay attention to it. There's still a chance that Lilum Harlem could start exactly when the current event ends, like it did on JP, but I'm gonna have to keep an eye on it basically and see. We have a couple more days until it actually happens, but the fact that this starts on the 10th makes me feel like maybe there'll be a little bit more of a, we won't immediately jump into it, but we'll see. Feel free to let me know what you think about that. I know there's a lot of different opinions about our schedule and how funky it can be, but yeah, what I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of big banners on the way. Draco's going to be coming with Lilum Harlot. That was like my original point that I was trying to make, and now I finally remember it. Lilum Harlot's going to be coming along the way, and then Anniversary is going to be here on the 4th of July. On JP, it was on August 4th is when their anniversary is, but that's not for us. Our anniversary always starts on the week of Anime Expo, when Anime Expo is always in the first week of July, and it's typically on a Saturday, so I would expect it for the 4th of July this year. So that would mean that's when we're gonna get Spacer-ish Kagall. And then afterwards, we also have Summertime. We got the new Summer BB. We got Summer Seal. That's not, I don't know that that's how you actually say your name, but I know that's how you use that. The Pokemon Seal says her name, so I'm gonna go with that. So there's a lot of like big stuff in the way, so it's really unfortunate because I would love to have a chance to get more Don Quixotes, and I wouldn't even mind to have like an NP2 Constantine, just because the Buster buff itself is tied to NP levels. So if I got him to NP level 2, I would be getting 40% instead of 30%, which is pretty nice. But I don't know. I don't think you should be summoning. That's my basic gut feeling, unless you are someone who was already planning ahead and saying, oh, but Wokey, I was planning, this is my big Don Quixote Constantine push. I already have 2,000 St. Quartz ready, and then I say, all right, my dude, good luck. I support you in your efforts. I'm not here to say don't do that. I'm just saying that if you're unfamiliar with the game and you're asking me my opinion, the answer is you should not be summoning. But if you are someone who already has a game plan and you already know all the St. Quartz you need, and you're like, I don't give a damn about any of the other things you just mentioned, none of those women come close to me compared to Constantine, then this is where you get your boy. This is your time. But anyway, that's the end of the video, everyone. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video, whatever it may be. I'm not sure what it's going to be myself, and I will see you guys later. Until next time, bye-bye.